sock rinsing. Woo!
Glamorous.
That was fun.
So what else do you do, Romilly, in the year? Do you live like totally? Because I'm saying this in a kind of probing way, but I know Nick's told me about sacrificing roosters, brandy roosters at certain times.
Yeah. When Nick arrived here, he was just saying, this country life thing, hey? And of course, it's very dictated by the year, So we're just coming up to topping. So now I'm thinking about what lambs we want next year, and so next week I'm going to put the rams, whichever rams I choose with whichever ewes, and I've got to work out places I'm going to put them, what mixes I might get, and then the fleeces that we've got, we have a responsibility for them. So come next March, mid-March, when the next lambs come, and we'll see what fleeces we might have in the future, and then then I'll be living in a field for 6 weeks in a caravan while the ewes lamb, and that's quite a big bit of the year. So literally I will move away from here and just go and live in the field, which I used to. It was such a big shift that I felt uncomfortable. Well, it was just a big shift, and often I was in a tent. But now it's so much part of my rhythm of the year. I just know I'm living in a field for 6 weeks. And actually, I'd say they're the most precious weeks of my year. Which is interesting how that's turned around from something that was a bit of a hardship, very late nights, getting up through the night. But I have a rhythm. Once I'd known that when you go to bed, just drink a pint of water, and that will wake you up naturally in the night. And when you wake up, and then you go and check the sheep, and your night watchman will keep your sheep safe as well, and the ewes will call you if they need you too. So I've become very part of that female thing for 6 weeks. And then we hit pretty much into shearing, so then we do shearing, and at the same time, through lambing and shearing, I'm sowing all the seeds and growing all the plants. So that's all happening at the same time. So that's the rising year. And it's quite full on. There's a lot of energy and sleeplessness, and you just got to keep on rolling and shearing and kind of seeing yourself into midsummer with the planting out and the growing and all of that sort of thing. And then there's this sort of kind of little pause at midsummer when you go and jump in the river and go, oh my God, I'm grateful to be alive, and it's absolutely beautiful. And then you start hitting the autumn chaos, which is into harvest. So I'll just be harvesting and harvesting and harvesting, of which I forage for most things. So everywhere I go, I'm just looking and going, I can have a little bit of that, but I have to sustainably harvest everything because I want there to be more next year. So it's just gently walking around and observing, and then this is part of the waning year, where as we go into that part, I'm thinking about lambing next year, putting the rams with the ewes, and dyeing the socks for winter, curiously, because that's probably our busiest time of year. People love them as Christmas presents. Who wouldn't like to receive a pair of naturally dyed socks for Christmas? So that is part of this bit of the year. And then there's a little quiet bit right in the middle of winter when it all stands still, around about the winter solstice. And in that quiet time, hopefully you just get Christmas out of the way just after that. And there's that little quiet time until February the 14th, which is when it all starts again. February the 14th being the day that Tolly likes to have all the seeds sown. And that's how the year runs. And that's sheep and growing, but obviously along the side there's the fox that gets the chickens, and then the chickens that sit on eggs, and the chicks that are raised, and then working out whether they're girls or boys, and then working out what responsibility to do with them given their gender, which is perhaps unfair, but you have to be practical. So all of these things. So yes, lots of plucking and gutting and horrendous stuff. Anyway.
It's funny the byproducts. It's like when I remember asking my uncle really awkwardly on camera.
Yeah.
He just hand delivered a bull calf.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, so I didn't know. It was male. I was like, so what's going to happen? Where's this calf going to go? And he was like,
it's the deal.
He's like, shut up.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I worked at the Earth Trust for years, and we had 500 ewes, and we used to run a lambing event every year, of which lamb burgers were served, and people used to come horrified and go, you can't do this, you can't have lamb burgers at a lambing event. And you just go, look, that is why they're being born. Yeah. Like, you have to realise that. You can't alter that. It's just part of farming, and that is the deal. And I think the skill in farming is to try and, because for me as a botanist, it's all about the land. And actually, as much as anything, I have the sheep to look after the land because I care about the diversity of the plants that are there, and they're the best way of managing chalk grassland. And so keeping the numbers exactly right is actually a bigger and deeper responsibility in some ways than maintaining the lives of all of them, which actually would be unrealistic and unfair, and they would probably die complicated and awful deaths. I choose their time of death, which I do not enjoy at all. I can't bear to go to the abattoir. But there is no point in complicating it any further than you need to. It hurts. That's it. You let it go, because it's the practical elements of farming, and you need to get your numbers right, and you need the animal welfare to be right. You need the right amount of grazing for the right amount of animals, and anything other than that, they will suffer, and that's not in your interest. Just be practical with it.
It's really interesting because it's obviously being realistic. Because I think most people they can't actually deal with the reality of it.
I know.
I don't think many people I know who eat meat would actually be able to
do that. Yeah. The only meat I've never bought any meat in my life, and the only meat I've really ever eaten has been animals that I've known, and I grew up in a small holding, so I knew the deal. But at the same time, it's like I find it very difficult to eat them, but that's how it should be. It's like that. It's like when I was lambing once, and I'd taken a gun with me because a fox was eating the lambs, and I slept with the gun underneath the bed, and I heard the fox come, with all the sheep barring and things like that, and I picked up the gun and I raised it and pointed it at the fox, and I put it down again, because I realised I would never shoot a fox. It's just part of the natural pattern of things. I don't want the fox to eat my lambs, but I'm not going to kill the fox. And that was it's the job he does, actually. Yeah. He will kill a fox on command, and that's the only thing I've ever seen him kill. So he stays up with me. Useless dog in every other respect. But he learned what was needed, and that was interesting that a dog can do that. Yeah. Just go, oh right, this is the gig. These lambs need to not be killed by foxes. So I will. Situation of just like country bumpkins with their bundles of nettles getting stuck in the infrastructure of the underground. Oh God. But it was really interesting, the interplay between London folk and their way and their pattern, and two country bumpkins on the tube with these nettles, and doing this nettle workshop after a showing of the nettle dress. And of course the nettle dress it's a homage to slowness, the bit that really resonated for me was when he said it wasn't the transformation of the nettles into cloth that amazed me, but the transformation of myself in relation to that transformation. And there's a lot in that, because it's all about slowness, isn't it? And with lambing and that wheel of the year, a lot of it is in the quiet times. It's the dawn when you get up alone, and you crunch across the frozen grass, and you go and look. Is there anyone new yet? Anyone in labour? Kind of all of that sort of thing. And the sun is just about to rise, and you're there alone with the mist, and it's those moments, you know, they're slow and beautiful. But should you wish to come and spend some freezing cold time in a field in March, it's beautiful as much as anything else. It's an orchard, so it's painfully beautiful, because when you're lambing, often, you know, the wind will play with the cherry blossom flowers, and you know, and the petals fall around and you're just there going, oh my God, I'm the only one experiencing this, but it's life-changing. It's really beautiful. And then later they start looking like entrails. There's still some dye in this wrap.
I don't have ever made this into somehow. I think I've got this kind of strange thing. I grew up in town, but
What are you filming from?
well, I've been making a film on Hardwick Estate with Nick and Emma Garnett, the estate next door. So some friends of everyone here, they were evicted from their homes after 26 years.
They will do that, won't they, on these big estates? When I was growing up, we lived on a big estate. My stepdad was like the farm manager, and we got evicted because they decided they wanted to get rid of the farm and have like events and festivals and stuff. So even being here, although I know this is all like a nice estate, the house is really nice, I have like a fuck off.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's really hard for me to like quash my unreasonable class antagonism.
Is it unreasonable?
It is here. It seems like because it's all happy and friendly and everyone loves each other, so I feel like a real fucking soldier. Being like, fucking burn the rich.
But it's all about the time and the change, isn't it? You know, because it's like we're facing a lot of change in a lot of ways. The climate's just one of them, isn't it? And you can focus on whatever bit of change you like. But actually, the old ways are changing for good and ill. And part of that is, you know, I think a very, very sort of kind of belated think about land ownership.
Yeah.
And so it is on the change, and the experiences that a lot of us had as children, they are still there today. And that's the awful thing with Nick and Emma, you know, it's like it's still there today. But just as, what's it called? There's a phrase, isn't there, when things start to wobble? Flickering, isn't it? It's flickering now, and the change is beginning. We're seeing the signs of it, just as we're seeing flickering in climate change as well. And so we just got to watch that and run with it.
And I think they do very well, the aristocracy, at hiding in plain sight. I think a lot of people don't really appreciate.
Well, they can play on the accepted norms. This is how it's always been, hasn't it?
Don't appreciate or understand how much land they own and how much power they have.
No.
So sometimes you feel like you're the only person that sees it, and you're just like, look, the emperor's not wearing any clothes, and then they just put you in prison or say that you're stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, and that still exists and is still the way.
Yeah.
You know, with a lot of it, and it's very hard because if you've, you know, been born with the boot on your foot, you don't understand how much it hurts when you kick someone else. You know, and it still happens and will happen many, many times. You know, from now, but
it's almost like in the system that when Nick and Emma were in court, the judge was almost like embarrassed by the fact that her hands were tied. You know, it was just like,
exactly. That's the thing. It's like, well, this is how the system is. You've got to.
You can't do anything.
You know, exactly. It's like kind of, I'm really sorry. It's stacked against you. This is as the law. You know, it's just like, you know, this needs to be off record. But I've just had a sort of palaver here. You know, with the, you know, kind of my tenancy and quite.
I knew they were all the same.
No, they're not. No, and no, and I'm not going to say that, or even, you know, and I'm very, very careful to think about how it's represented, because if you are part of that old school and you want to change, do you think that's easy? Do you think you can step away from your inheritance and every decision that you make will be right and fair for the people that you're making those decisions for? No, they're going to fuck up loads.
They're losing like their friends in
Yes. Yeah, like redefining a whole load of things. And recently there was a bit of a fuck up, for the want of another phrase. It really hurt me, but it also really hurt them.
And they listened.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And you know, and it's hard because a lot of it still needs to be my fault. But I will take that because of the amount of love and respect that I have for them.
And
I don't give that lightly.
Lives in a similar situation, and I think I don't know if it's like something they do at boarding school, but it's like.
Don't you film me?
Go on.
No consent.
That running?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something that they do. Don't show that because then the
Don't worry,
person
I
I'm
won't.
talking about will know it.
Yeah. It's okay. I would never do anything that would get you in trouble.
Yeah, is it something they learn at boarding school? It's like he feels like the landowner just can't quite see him as a human being. Almost. Do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of childhood trauma do you have to go?
Well,
all part of the.
When they're taken away from the family,
Exactly.
put into a dorm with a bunch of other boys.
To learn the fagging system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's grim.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't.
If you're lucky, you're not sexually abused.
It doesn't. It's like you can't relate as a human being to other human beings. It's like, and it's not through intention or whatever. It's just not. And like you said.
So you think you're describing a unique situation, and you're really not. That isn't the school system. That's what it's designed to do, and that's what it does. And it either breaks people or it turns them into people that can't relate to other human beings.
But what if you are from that school of thought and you want to change things? It's actually really hard, and it takes a lot of belief from all of, here, I'm just one of the proles, but it takes belief in them changing effectively, and standing by that and defending it, because the gossip on the estate could have caused, for example, with my issue, a lot of issues if I'd, said, they're terrible, this, that, and, I'm not going to, because I love and believe in what they're doing.
Good on you for your faith.
So it's...
And also, how many other estates are doing this?
Yes, exactly.
You can't punish them for it, can you?
No.
Just because they're more accessible?
No, and understanding that it's like the change has got to start somewhere, and it ain't going to be easy. It's like here stands as an example of something that really needs to happen, but it's just not going to be easy. And the amount of learning, like none of us know anything about, the legal framework of running an estate as a charitable trust or anything else, but we're having to learn about it. We don't know about, what are the best voting structures, what are the best structures of, kind of trustees and things like that. We don't know. We're having to get advice from other people that have done it, so a lot of places in Scotland, but they tend to be islands. Okay, we've got some gates, it's not quite the same. Who's in, who's not? How do you decide? And so there's loads of, it's just going to be hard.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
You can.